Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. There is music in my soul today, a carol to my King, and Jesus listening can hear the songs I cannot sing. Oh, there's sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. There is gladness in my soul today, and hope and praise and love for blessings which he gives me now, for joys laid up above. Oh, there's sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful, happy moments roll. When Jesus shows his smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul. And more about Jesus. 564. More about Jesus would I know, more of his grace to others show, more of his saving fullness see, more of his love who died for me. More about Jesus, more about Jesus, more of his saving fullness see, more of his love who died for me. More about Jesus, let me learn, more of his holy will discern. Spirit of God, my teacher be, showing the things of life to me. More about Jesus, more about Jesus, more than saving fullness see, more of his love who died for me. More about Jesus on his throne, riches in glory all his own. More of his kingdom sure increase, more of his coming Prince of Peace. More about Jesus, more about Jesus, more of his saving fullness see, more of his love who died for me.
Well, good evening. How are y'all doing this evening? Just as a kind of a reminder, this Sunday we're going to have a fellowship at my house, at our house, Sunday evening at 5:30. We got a pond, a city-owned pond behind us, and y'all are welcome to bring fish and stuff and do that. Back on the back table, and these will be out there Sunday as well, but there's a map showing you how to get to our house. If you use GPS, it'll probably get you lost. I don't know why, but GPS just has a problem with our neighborhood. So if you just go straight down Mustang Road all the way to, you're almost out of Yukon, there's the Walmart neighborhood, and then across is the Life Church. You go on to the second housing addition on the left, which the road is T Rose, and you turn it, and it kind of curves around, and you come to a stop sign, you turn left, and it curves around, and we're back in there. But that's the easy way to get there. But there is a map, so make sure you get one of those if you haven't. Okay, so what was your God shot? Any that stood out to you this week?
You know, a lot was said about the eclipse
Mm-hmm.
and what is coming in the future, the end times, and there was a lot of advertisement about people preparing
Yeah,
for disasters.
preparing, yeah.
And I thought Psalm 9, 9, and 10 stood out. Some were afraid that, and are afraid that Yellowstone is about to erupt.
Yeah,
And,
it could.
They say get you underground shelters. But Psalm 9:9 says, "The Lord also will be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. And those who know your name will put their trust in you. For you, Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you."
Amen.
I thought as I saw all of those things coming past, I'm not putting my refuge in one of those places that it's in the Lord.
Yep, trust in Him. I've got a movie, it's called Super Volcano. I don't know whether you've ever heard of it. It's kind of like a documentary, but it's a movie. And I've shown it a lot to my students, but it's about Yellowstone going up. And yeah, we in Oklahoma, we would probably last a few months, but that's about it. No food, everything's going to be gone. So closer you get, the worse it is. But even in here in Oklahoma, we'd have a lot of problems trying to survive through that. So I don't know that you could save enough food and put enough food in there to protect you. But like you said, we don't trust in all of that. We trust in God to take care of things, right? Anything else? That's good. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Do the angels eat?
Eat? I don't know.
I was reading part of our study here, and it was comparing how that God fed the Israelites and brought them through, and saved them from the Egyptians and all that.
Right.
It was more or less going back over all that. But it was talking about how that God had sent the birds in, and they had food, and then manna came out of heaven.
Right.
And it was compared to the food that the angels eat.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering if you had read anything else about that.
No, I haven't. It's possible. It may be. I know when we get to heaven, there's the marriage supper of the Lamb, so we will eat something. But whether we have to have that in order to survive, and I know that the river of life, there's the trees on either side that bear fruit, and I think that's for eating as well. But I don't know that we have to eat in order to survive. I think it may be just, may or may not.
It's kind of not on this that we're studying, but I'd like to ask you about it.
Okay.
Okay. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are the Trinity.
Right.
Okay. The Father's on the throne. The Son is sitting at the right hand of the Father. Where's the Holy Ghost?
Right now, He's here with us.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Everywhere around in here.
Okay, then that means that everything in heaven is not quite complete yet until we get there.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Do you think that way about it? That's the way I was thinking.
Well, I hadn't thought about it being that way, but yeah, He's not there. He will be. So.
But Paul said that we are positionally already in
Right.
heaven because we're in Christ.
Right.
He is at the Father's throne.
And it all goes back to the fact that we are limited by time, and God's not. So even though we may think, well, we've got, sometime in the future we're going to be there, to God, we're there. He's not bound by time, and that's just a limit that He put on us to, for us to experience. So, yep, He's there. We're there. And more coming.
May not be there in
Permanent, yeah.
yet,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's sure,
yes, it is sure.
sure thing that
Yep.
we'll be there, that
Yep.
we are there in Christ.
Yeah.
The Father and Son are interceding for us.
Yes, definitely the Son is interceding, and so is the Spirit interceding for us. Yeah, the Bible talks about both of those. So the very first story we read was right before Saul was killed, but he was wanting to find out whether he should attack or not, and he went to God, and God wouldn't answer. And he went to, tried the Urim and Thummim and all that kind of stuff. God wouldn't answer. So what did he do? Went to a medium. Yeah, the witch at Endor is what I think the King James calls her. But went to this medium so that he could find out. And who did he want to call up? Samuel. What happened when Samuel appeared? It shocked her, yeah. She was very distraught from I part of it I'm sure was because it was Samuel, but I think a lot of it was she was surprised that anybody showed up, because I'm sure she had been doing things, tricking people for years and years, and then all of a sudden, somebody actually showed up. And I love, Saul says, I need an answer, and what does Samuel tell him? You remember?
Well, I gave you answers before that you didn't do it or whatever.
Yeah, basically, I've already told you what's going to happen, and it's going to happen tomorrow. But then he also said, if God's not answering you, do you think I can answer you and God's not going to? I mean, he's like, I can't do anything that God, if he doesn't want to tell you, then I'm not going to tell you. But
When he asked for Samuel, she still had not recognized him.
right.
But then she recognized him.
I think it was when Samuel appeared that her eyes were open about everything.
Oh, okay.
And realized it was Saul. And
Samuel called him by name.
nah, I don't think so. I think it was just that moment she realized who it was. Maybe he, lost his, disguise at that point. I don't know. So the Philistines are getting prepared to attack Saul and the whole army of Israel. What's David doing?
Taking care of the sheep in his daddy's fields.
Well, this is after that.
Was he in the Midianite thing? Yeah.
Well, yes, no.
Is that
He was living in Ziklag, but he had been going out and raiding places in Canaan and telling the king that he was raiding Israel, right? And so they get ready to go to war against Saul and the armies of Israel, and David wants to go with them. And he was like, yeah, come on. And then the other king said, no, we don't want him there. And they reminded him of the song where they sang that Saul has killed his thousands and David his tens of thousands. And they wouldn't let David go.
Did they also say that David was wondering what he was going to do with
Yes.
into conflict?
Yeah, if they get into war, what would he do?
His country, his town, whatever. And that's when the Midianites had taken all
Yes.
all the
Yeah.
wives and children and livestock and everything.
So what do you think David was thinking when he was wanting to go with them? Was he thinking, hey, we got Saul on that side, I'll be over here, and we'll just trap him in the middle and get rid of all of them? Probably. That's what I think anyway. The Bible doesn't really say, but that's just kind of the way I feel about it, that David was thinking, yeah, we'll take care of him. But then when they wouldn't let him go, because they were afraid that he would do that, then he went back to Ziklag. And when he got there, the Midianites had come in and destroyed and taken off all of the people. And so what did his men want to do? They wanted to stone David for leading them out here, and then all of their families and everyone was taken off. And so they took out after the Midianites. They went a while, and a bunch had to stay because they were just exhausted. And I think there were 600 total, and 200 stayed, and 400 went on. They defeated the Midianites and then brought all the plunder back, but David made a ruling that had already been stated earlier, but the people that stayed with the baggage would receive equal with the people that went to war. And so he kind of took care of all of that. And then some guy came, young guy, and tells him that Saul and Jonathan are dead. And David says, "How do you know?" What does the guy say? He said, "I killed him." And he said he was. I think he was saying he was injured and didn't want them to, just make, torture him and all that kind of stuff, which Saul did ask his armor bearer to do that, and then he killed him. So what happened to that guy? And David had him killed because he raised his hand against the Lord's anointed. The Lord's anointed. Okay. So then David is made king over Judah, right? And who else? Who comes to power over the rest of Israel? Remember his name? Yeah. Ishbosheth, yeah, one of Saul's son. And Abner is the one that was behind, pushing him to be king. Abner was like the general in charge of the armies, yeah. And so Ishbosheth said some things to Abner and accused him of something that he was not guilty of, and so he ended up going to David and said, "Look, you should be king. I'll bring all of the Israel army to you." And then his general, Joab, was not happy about that, was he? Why not?
Because he killed.
Well, yes, but that's not why. He killed, Abner had killed Joab's brother, Asahel, during a war or during a battle. But he didn't trust Abner. He thought Abner was just trying to use a ruse or trick David into letting him come in there, and then he would attack and so forth. So Joab went and found Abner outside of one of the cities of refuge. Do y'all remember the cities of refuge? What were they for?
To be safe until the decision was made whether they were guilty or not.
Yeah, and to be safe from the avenger of blood. And they were right at the edge of the city, not quite into the city limits, but they were right there. And Joab reached up and took a hold of Abner's beard, like I guess that was a custom to grab the beard and then kiss on both sides of their cheek. But when he grabbed him, he stabbed him and killed him. Just outside of the thing, because he was, quote, 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 the avenger of blood. And since Abner had killed his brother, it was his responsibility. However, that was also in wartime, in a battle, so it really wasn't the same thing as if he had been killed some other way. So, but what did David do about it? Nothing. I mean, he might have griped about it, but he didn't do anything to Joab. He mourned for Abner, and everyone saw him mourn, but he didn't do anything to Joab. In fact, there was a place in there that talked about how he was kind of afraid of Joab, because Joab had a lot of power, and he was the general leader. I mean, he was a leader, and I think David was a little fearful of him trying to take over. I don't know why, because God had already promised him, but then God promises a lot of stuff to us too, and we kind of get worried about it too. How did Ishbosheth die? That was the son of Saul that kind of took over. How did he die? Yeah, it was Saul's son. And two men came in while he was resting, and they killed him. And then they went and told David. I don't remember whether this is when they brought the crown or if it was with Saul they brought a crown, but they came and told David that they killed him. And what happened to those two guys? He had them killed as well, because even though Ishbosheth was an enemy in a sense, he was still anointed as king, and same thing. They lifted their hand against the Lord's anointed. So David didn't do anything. Saul asked him at one point, promise me that you won't kill out my family. And he promised him that he wouldn't. And he didn't. Well, to Jonathan too, but at one time he promised Saul, because Saul knew he was going to be king. One of the times that he kind of came to his senses, he said, I know you're going to be king, so please don't go and kill all of my sons. And David didn't do it, but they were all killed anyway by other people. And then there's only one descendant of Saul that was left. Do you remember his name? Mephibosheth. And what do we know about Mephibosheth? Mephibosheth. He was lame because when his nurse picked him up when he was a boy, running away from the battle or whatever, they're trying to get out of the city, and she tripped and fell and messed up his legs, so he couldn't walk. And David took him in. We haven't read this yet, but David will take him in and make him sit at his table or eat at his table the rest of his life. And there's some other things that happen with Mephibosheth that we'll read a little later. We read the first 5 chapters of Chronicles. How many of you enjoyed reading the first 5 chapters of Chronicles? You did? It's a lot. It's very difficult because it's just name after name after name after name after name.
We had the recap.
Yes.
Tell us what it all boiled down to.
Yes. There were.
That everything went back to the previous.
Yep. And the first 2 chapters, there were 3 people that were kind of pointed out. Do you remember who they were? Remember any one of them? Nope. The first one was Nimrod. What do we know about Nimrod? He was a mighty hunter, and he was called a great man. I think he probably was very well known, maybe for his hunting skills. Maybe he just kind of took power. And this was a long, long time ago. And but somebody made his name famous in the last 50, 60 years. Y'all know who that was? Bugs Bunny. He started calling Elmer Fudd a Nimrod, meaning somebody that was really dumb or stupid. But Nimrod was a mighty hunter, and so was Elmer Fudd, right? At least he thought he was. Yes.
And then people took it because they didn't remember it was in the Bible.
Right.
It became that.
Yeah, it changed completely our view of the name Nimrod, thanks to Bugs Bunny and Walt Disney. Yeah. Another one was Peleg, or Peleg, however you say it. Do you remember him? It mentions one thing about him. What was it?
It was the day that the earth was divided.
The earth was divided during his lifetime. The earth was divided. What happened? We don't know. It could have been talking about the Tower of Babel when all the people were divided up. A lot of people think that it has to do with the plate tectonics and the separation of the continents. I don't know whether you've ever studied that, but in earth science and stuff, when I've taught it, if you take all of the plates, not necessarily just the continents, because the continents have a lot underground or underwater, but you can take the continents and put it back together fairly close and make one big area, and they call it Panacea. And and you'll find that animals that where these places overlap or where they would connect, that you will find similar animals on both those continents that are now, thousands of miles apart, but they're very, very similar because, people say they used to be together. I don't know. I mean, that's what science says. I don't have a problem with it if it happened. If God did that, that's great. If he didn't, that's great too. But anyway, that's the other one. And then the third one was a man named Achan. Who was Achan?
He took jewels and stuff.
Yes.
And whole family
In
was destroyed.
what city? When they attacked what city?
Was it the first city?
The first one?
The first one.
Yes. Huge city.
And God had said,
Don't take any of it, but he did.
And he did.
Huge wall. Jericho, yeah. Rode 3 chariots abreast going across it or something. Yes, and they call him in Chronicles, it calls him the troubler of Israel. And he definitely was. I mean, he took that, and because of that, 36 men, I think it is, were killed at Ai. And then when they finally, we went through this a few weeks ago about how he had opportunity after opportunity to confess, but he didn't until it finally came down and said, "You're the one." And then he confesses. And it cost him his life and his whole family's lives, as well as the 36 that died. So yes, he was a troubler of Israel. So that's in the first 2 chapters. And then the only other one that kind of stood out to me was in chapter 4. And a man who said a prayer. Do y'all remember what his name is? Jabez, yeah. The prayer of Jabez. Is it Phil Wilkerson? Is that right?
Wilkerson sounds right. I don't remember the first.
Yeah, Phil, may not be the first name. Wilkerson. Anyway, he wrote the book, The Prayer of Jabez, and he explains it a little bit different than what she did. But he prayed this prayer, and God granted his wishes. And she talked about how sometimes we have trouble praying for ourselves sometimes. We can pray for other people. We can pray for, this situation or that situation. But sometimes when we start thinking about ourselves, we get a little worried about praying for ourselves because we think that's not the right thing to do. But it also depends on what you're praying. I mean, if you're praying that God will give you $1 million, that's probably not the right kind of prayer. But if you're praying and asking God to show himself, to give you more faith, to help you grow, help you to mature, help you to, in any situation that you're facing, to have the wisdom and guidance to make that decision that he wants you to make, those prayers are great. There's nothing wrong at all for praying for yourself. And I think that's something that she kind of stood out, or that she pointed out of it. And the last thing I have is that the tribes of Simeon and Levi, we already know Levi was spread out all through the tribes. But in Chronicles 5, we find that Simeon is kind of spreading out. It's dwindling. People are moving away from the area. Why were those two tribes pointed out or selected, or whatever you want to call it? Why were they, I can't think of the word I want. Why was it prophesied that they would be spread out around through the rest of the population? Do you remember? Something that that Levi and Simeon did. Had to do with their daughter Tamar. Their sister Tamar. Yeah, they killed the whole town, all of the men in that town. They lied to him. They said, if you all will be circumcised, then we'll intermarry with you. And then when all the men did it, and while they were all hurting, then they went in and they killed all the men. And Jacob said, you troubled me, because now all the nations around here want to kill us because what you did to those people. So anyway, before he died, he prophesied that they would be spread out. And really, Moses also did later. He prophesied that they would be spread out. And so that is beginning to happen.
Also didn't have as many children.
Yeah, well, Levi was a fairly big one, but Simeon was pretty small, yeah. And the other thing that Moses, when he was I think it was Moses, was saying blessings on each of the tribes, he didn't mention Simeon at all, which is kind of interesting. So, we read several Psalms. Any of those stood out to you?
These weren't as informative to me or familiar to me as the ones, they didn't click with me like the ones that we read
Last week?
I was kind of lost.
Well, I think that it was this week we read probably my favorite Psalm. No, that was last week.
That one, it's one that's well known.
Psalm 8 is probably one of my favorite. When it says, when I consider the sun and the moon and the stars that you ordained, and what is man that thou art mindful of him, or son of man that you care for him. And of course, I like science and I like studying all that kind of stuff. And I think every time I look up and I see all of that, it's like, yeah, who am I that God cared for me so much that he sent his son to die for me. So anyway, any others? Not trying to rush any of you. All right, well, let's stand and join hands, and we will sing our dismissal chorus. There you go, Freddie.